Hey everyone, Bryan here. Welcome back to another episode of the Driveway Marketing Podcast, The Road to Six Figures. I tell you what, today's episode is going to be pretty cool. I think we got a pretty big personality in the seat next to me, blasting down the road. As I've said, and as you guys have listened to kind of all these little micro episodes I did in our first couple of guests, this is all about you, right? So this is, we want you to take. It's a big enough world. There's lots of people that need help. You're probably wondering why. In one of my episodes I have coming out, people wonder if they can ever drive a Maybach or and actually not have lease payments on their F-350, that their accountant goes, Jesus, you shouldn't have that. That's too much money, kind of stuff. That just, he should be telling you to go pay for it, right? Instead of just finance it. But, the whole idea is to help out. And so Jonathan here is going to share a little bit about him. And he's going to also too, in the show notes and online, we're going to make sure his, listen to his podcast. Cause I know a bunch of the people personally that were on your podcast, and bet you didn't know that. I met Ken Okazaki at a Tony Robbins event about 8 years ago and we danced on each other's heads and did all the Tony Robbins guru stuff for 4 or 5 days. We still keep in touch. And then Brent Linden Call, whatever. Sorry. Yeah. Brent, he came to one of my masterminds I did about a year and a half ago. So, and that was just a quick perusal. So I can tell you those two guys are awesome people. Ken's outrageous, like his stuff is outrageous. Yeah. And Brett really knows how to kind of systemize the business, right? So the business doesn't run you, right? So or hopefully it doesn't. So, but go ahead. So Jonathan, share a little bit about kind of the goal of the Home Service Hustle podcast, and then kind of where you kind of fit in, and then we'll just take it from there.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Bryan, for having me. And so the podcast I've had for about 2.5 years now, Home Service Hustle. Tagline is where we talk about marketing, mindset, and money.
Sweet.
Obviously, there's no end to that, because I also like to talk about, experimental drugs and aliens, like whatever people want to talk about, like let's go. But yeah, I'd like to bring people on the show that can bring some kind of value to, my audience, which is typically the home service base. I want to help them grow. I want them to be a better version of themselves. And if that's in the marketing, mindset, or money, arena, that's what I want to do. And I've had some big names on the show that have built these $100 million companies. And I just, want to pick their brains and ask them, like, what did they do? But I also want to hear the challenges that they've faced, because we've all faced challenges. If you're a business owner, it's definitely not, 90% of the time, it's not rainbows and butterflies for sure.
Right. And that nuts, right? So, because you think about it, everyone's like, oh, this guy must have it crazy. I have a friend of mine I was in a mastermind with. I want to say his he's 120 million, 700 people, right? And he's like, I like, what's it like? He goes, it's mayhem every day. He's like, and it's better now than it was 3 years ago, and better now than it was 5 years ago. But it's every day there's a new challenge that you didn't know about. And, and this, right? So every company has different stages. Yeah. And we always want to get to the next stage. But, and I'll send you a copy of my book, but in my book, I talked about meaningful scale. Like, my wife's an interior designer. She just wants to have her an assistant. She doesn't want to have 10 people. Right. So, and some guys, if you're an AC guy, or you're doing carpet cleaning, or you're doing, bathtubs in a day, there's all kinds of different scales of business. And it's funny that you talked about your tagline, because you didn't know this, but my LinkedIn profile previously, I talked about new methods, new markets, and new mindset, right? Because my thing is about, so my shtick is like, pick one thing, do it, preferably for a year. But if you can't do it, do at least for 90 days. Right? Because they say habits are built in 21, and I just say blow that out, right? Do it consistently, right? If you want to build referrals, just talk to this one person on your phone that you did business with every day. And if you can't do every day, do it once a week, but be religious to it, because then it'll work, right? So people think it's like, oh, Bryan, you make this look easy. No, I don't make it look easy. I do it consistently. I do it nuts, right? That's right. People want, people that write books go, well, how'd you write a book? I said, I wrote for 20 minutes a day, or 30 minutes a day, and in 6 months I had a book. Like, that's not magic.
I think the consistency part is what it's hard for people, because they've never been consistent at anything in their life, and they don't realize that. But if they really did some true reflecting, they could be honest and go, oh, you're probably right. Like, things get hard, and hard to everybody is different, but it's like within that 21 days that you're saying that, it becomes a habit, hard is going to set in for most people, and they just quit.
day one, day two. What am I doing? No, I committed to doing this, right?
Yeah.
Talking to my team today, we talked about the signing of the Declaration of Independence. They looked at me like I was nuts. And I was like, they signed their death warrant, right? Because they made a commitment, and that's an over the top one. But hey, if you have a strategic plan that says you're going to contact whatever, you're going to do something, and it's you and your team, have them sign it, even if it's meeting notes, right? They're going to look at you like you're nuts, and then you're going to say, look what we all decided we were going to do, right? So
Yeah.
it's I think consistency, especially for, as you get to those close to those levels, right? The first one's 100 grand, then it's 500,000, it's 1 million, then it's 3 or 5. And, then it becomes different after that. As you get close to those, do you think people get scared shitless and do everything they can to self-sabotage themselves to not get to the next level?
I think if you don't have your true plan, vision, your why built out in those different levels, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Like the person that says, I want to get from 500,000 to be a $5 million company, you're not going to do that overnight. There's going to be stages to get to that 1, 2, 3, 5. But if you can't accept and plan and look at what does it take me to get from a million, 500,000 to 1 million and 1 million to 2 million, and know that there's going to be growing pains in there. You may have to scale back, some of the money that you're taking out of the business as your personal revenue to be able to fund this expansion. But I think you have to be honest with yourself to say, is this what I want? Now, I had a guy on my podcast yesterday. He's turned into a personal friend. His name's Billy Klein, and he owns a huge door business here in DFW. He started out, it was DFW Door Repair. Now it's Your New Door, the brand. So they're looking at maybe going, nationwide with that different brand. And he told me the story that when he started out and went out on his own, he's I guess semi-professional or professional bass fisherman. And so he had this really cushioned life where he was able to work 3 days, go fishing 3 days. And he was like, I loved it. But once he decided that he was getting in more leads that he could handle and that he probably needed to hire a couple more guys, that he said, well, if I don't put a plan together and consistently be able to have those leads coming in, then I'm going to hire these guys and then I'm going to have to lay them off, or I'm going to be, in a shitty situation. So I think it's all about putting that vision in place and going, this is where I'm, and I'm a big believer in manifestation. And so I think that vision is important for all of us. But also, if you can't just go, and I deal with these people all the time, they go, okay, what'd you do in revenue this year? We did 1.2. All right, what do you want to do in the next 12 months? 3.5 or 3.2. They just say this round number. I'm like, okay, have you put into place what it's going to take you to get there, from staff, from, trucks on the road,
financing,
training, and finance and equipment, the marketing? Like, you're at 1.2, you want to get a 3.2. That sounds like a great number to throw out there, but like, do you have a clue what it's going to take to be able to achieve that? A lot of people can get to $1 million, especially in the home service space, with word of mouth and referrals. A lot of people can, depending on which business you're in. To get to that next $2 or $3 million place, you've got to have solid processes in place, and you're going to have to spend money on marketing.
And that's something. It's funny because I want to pick up on a word you said, because manifesting, right? So personal story. So my wife and I are huge believers in all this stuff. We've done a lot of foo-foo, woo-woo trainings. We went to Tony Robbins, right? We did it backwards. We went to Business Mastery, which is his second most expensive thing. Tickets are 15 grand a piece for a 3-day thing. We got 2 tickets. We were guests by Tony. We were really lucky. One of my clients, Tony, was an investor, right? So it was nuts. So we didn't know what to expect. We get in, right? So we're all in. So after that, my wife and I separately took both of our kids to UPW, Unleash the Power Within. We're all firewalkers. We're a family of firewalkers. My oldest son, he wears his firewalker bracelet every single day. He's 23 years old. He first did it when he was 15 years old. So again, manifestation. So my wife is big into manifesting. She's doing her mood boards and whatever stuff, planning for the year. We take a break around the holidays. And last summer, my mechanic had a really cool used Lexus SUV. One of his customers wanted to sell, and wasn't the price he wanted. And so I waited. And so finally I went to Pam one day and said, hey, Sharif's got a car. I got to take my car in for service. Why don't we come look at it? And so I didn't think anything of it. So we drove up, the guy pulls it out of the garage and she goes, are you shitting me? I said, what are you talking about? She's like, this is on my board. The only option that it didn't have was she wanted an all black one, and this was all white with black interior. So people say like, oh, it's all woo woo. Now I had seen it. I'm sure I had seen it 1,000 times, but she was like, I manifested this. When we bought our house, she manifested a house that looked like the house we bought. And that was, she didn't tell me about it. After we bought the house, she goes, and you guys aren't watching this, but you know, she pulled a picture up. She's like, see this? This is what I manifested a year and a half ago when we said, hey, we're going to move. Let's get a different house kind of stuff. So it's an amazing, and you have to be committed to letting it happen. You can't force it. Manifestation is, you know, it's not what do they call it? You know, believe it and they will come, build it, and it comes off. You actually have to be that person to be willing to manifest that. And what we have found and what we did was, we have found you may have to give up short-term stuff to get long-term stuff.
Yeah.
But if you do it for the right reasons, then all of a sudden it just, people tell me, oh, Bryan, it must be amazing to have this team and you're doing what you're doing. I'm like, no, it took me forever. And by the way, I self-sabotaged it for like 3 years. Bryan, you're an expert in this. Why aren't you doing this for other people? I don't want to deal with the headache with staff and all this other stuff, right? And it's manifested, as you guys are finding out, listening, kind of what we do every day. But it just happens. Like, oh, it just happened overnight. Well, I've been working on it for 5 years, and I've been doing it for 25 professionally. It didn't just happen. But we have to allow ourselves to be open to do that. And that's, you know, I'm saying, I'm listening to a home service podcast. There's a couple of marketing guys. Like, aren't you going to talk about the latest lead strategy? Yeah, the lead strategy is do something and be consistent and stop changing shit midstream and stop following shiny objects, right? But the other side of it is that the power of consistency. There you go. Who's that?
This is by Weldon Long, nice. And it's a New York Times bestseller. But I had him on my podcast, and he tells a story. I've heard him tell it before on stage, and I said, Weldon, will you talk about that story here on the podcast? He wanted this this certain G-Wagon that existed. They only had a certain amount of them, but it's a wider body, you know, it's a little taller. And so he found a picture of it and he stuck it up on his vision board. And where the one that he found was a picture of Floyd Mayweather's version, the one that he had. And so he just cut it out and he put it up on his vision board. And 2 years later, he found one at an auction and bought it. And so he had the car, but the title hadn't come in yet. And then one day his wife said, like, you're not going to believe this. And he got the title. It was Floyd Mayweather. It amazing. Was that exact one. Cool,
right?
So, you know, and he just said, like, you know, people don't understand the power of, you know, being able to have that vision and manifest what you want. And I think the only thing that separates us from the things that we want is the plan. I mean, like if you truly focus on it,
I got goosebumps. So that's great, right? Because I'm lucky. I'm in a circle of amazing people that do amazing things, all kinds of different businesses, and people that listen. You know, you are the sum of the 5 people you hang out with. Yeah. So regardless of where you are listening to this, regardless of what you're doing, you know, if you're going to hang out with the guys at the bar, that's what you're going to be like out. But if you're going to be, you know, investing in your business, I think investing in yourself is the first thing you got to do. Find smart people to hang around with, preferably at different levels than you. And quite honestly, they don't even need to be in the same business as you. Don't be a leech, right? Because Tony Robbins talks about a business map. We'll kind of unpack a little bit about what Jonathan talked about. You know, people like this idea of a business plan and stuff. I love the idea of a map and why the map's different than a plan, because of maps, you have to show where you are, and then you got to figure out where you're going to go, and then you got to figure out how to get there. And that's a really different idea, right? So along the map, you can have manifestations of things you're going to give yourself, reward yourself for doing things. But, you know, you can't go from 1.2 to 3.2 just by saying, yep, we're going to buckle down this year.
Yep.
You know, we're going to upsell this program and we're going to get 10% people to buy this more. No, there's, you know, 5 or 7 ways to increase your revenues, and you can't just do one. You need to do all of them.
I'll tell you, I got so tired of hearing that. I looked back. I don't do sales anymore in our agency, but I got so tired of looking back at my sales book over the years and saw those. It was the 1.2 to 2.2 and 3.5 to 4.5. And I was like, these people are just throwing a round number up there. It's not making any rhyme or reason. But it wasn't until about 4 years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, we lost a client that we had amazing results for, and I had them built into a lot of my presentations, my speaking decks of where I would go talk to different manufacturers at their events. And we lost this client, and I had never called, like we have an offboarding team and they have our surveys and stuff, but I had never called a client and said, like, why did you leave us? But I did only because I had to go a speaking gig coming up and I was going to have to change all of the slides in it, and I was aggravated. And it was one of those moments that, like, it needed to happen. It had to happen. There's a reason why it happened. So I called this guy and I said, hey, I'm just super curious. Like, why did y'all leave? Because, like, we've got amazing results for you guys. So I know, like, business has to be good. He goes, you got a minute to talk? I'll explain it to you. And I said, sure. And he goes, well, you did help our business. Matter of fact, we've been with you 2 years. Our business has grown 2 years in a row. And I'm like hitting the phone in my ear, making sure everything's working. I'm like, so why did you leave? And he goes, okay, the first year we wanted to grow by 1.5 million. We grew 900,000. And year two, we wanted to grow 1.8 and we grew like a million. And he says, so that sounds good, right? You know, we grew a lot. The problem is we had projected and forecasted it to grow by a certain amount, and we hired for it. We trained for it. We got the trucks, we got the equipment. And then we suffered as a company because we didn't hit those numbers, and that's what we had projected to do. And man, it affected me so bad because I was like, well, wait a minute. I mean, one, I didn't ever really take your numbers of growth seriously. Like, I wrote it down during the sales process, but I was letting them tell me how much they wanted to spend on marketing, right? So it was like, well, they said, well, I want to spend 5,000 on Google or 3,000 on Facebook ad. I'm saying, yes, sir, we're going and doing it. But if you've got how much you wanted to make already in place, I was doing it all wrong. So we went out and built this super slick process now and into these programs where I want to know, what is your average ticket for a new air conditioning system? What is your average ticket to go out and repair someone? I want to know what your overhead expenses are. Because now when you say we did 1.2, we want to do 2.2, I'm going to reverse engineer it and show you how much you need to be spending on marketing. And if you can't afford that, well, the next conversation we're going to have is, how much do you really want to make based off of what you can afford? But you can't go out there in business and go, I want to do this.
Right. That's
you can put all the work in the world, but if you can't find the customers, it's nothing more than a pipe dream.
And I also think too, it's a vanity number, right? So there are people that tell you how many staff they have and how many trucks they are, but what does that mean in their balance sheet? What does their cash reserves look like? Could he have acquired a company to double his company? He certainly could have acquired it. And I will tell you, as kind of my previous life was a sales consultant, right? So, and building some of these systems from the sales perspective is, what are you doing what's your close ratio, right? Is it 80%? Is it 60%? Is it 50%? Right? How many times do you upsell? Do you not upsell every time? How do you know? What's the scripts? Are you going off script? Are you allowing to going off script? Right? So again, so the blame is, I had a client separation not too terribly long ago. And I won't mention them by name, but I almost wanted to send a mirror to the CEO of the company saying, you know what's wrong? Here's what's wrong. You wanted to do something your way, and I told you it wasn't going to work. And then a year later, it didn't work. And then you were mad. And I was like, and I basically said, I told you so, because you were focused on the number of people walking through the door instead of the number of people signing on the bottom line. It's a vanity metric, right? So some people, for whatever reason, so a couple of things to take away. Don't do vanity metrics.
We've had to get deeper and deeper. And I challenge everybody out here that is in the home service space that actually hears this, like, focus on your customers, your existing customers. Get them. If you've got memberships that you can sell them, and if you don't, find a way to create something where you can consistently see them, whether it's once a year, twice a year, multiple times a year, because when you look at the data just backs it up in every industry, that when those people that feel that they're a part of you in some kind of membership, the average ticket is significantly higher all the way around. Because as you begin to build that trust and credibility with them, they are more open to buying more of your services or products or whatever you sell.
And you'll have a guest on one of your upcoming episodes. His name is Vance Morris. He's the Disneyfication guy. He will, if you think it's just marketing, he will have stories about what you as a team can do to create the customer service experience from the first second they set foot in the door, to totally disarm the client, because everyone else is like, so what do they think for HVAC? How much is this going to cost? And am I going to get ripped off? Right.
Yeah.
So you completely disarm that situation. There's a bunch of things he'll talk about it because he'll do a much better job than I will. And it changes the conversation completely, where they now become, okay, you're really here to help me. You really are here to help me. And I'm gonna, and there's still situations, but you really are here to help me and do what you say you want to do. And I'm gonna feel like I'm getting something for what I'm paying for, right?
Yeah.
So, especially in some of these markets, I live in Florida, you live in Texas. So whether it's these, for us, it's summertime. It's like, let's make a deal on the HVAC systems. The same HVAC system could be $5,000 to 25,000, depending on, the sales training.
And that's right.
And then every homeowner's going, what am I actually playing? It's like a black box. Like, how much is it? Oh, well, you get free warranty. Well, you really get free warranty because the manufacturers provide X. What am I actually getting? Right. So, funny story. My mother-in-law has a service contract on her unit, and she was having a problem with her heat, and they wouldn't honor the service contract because they had come out previously and didn't fix it. And so they're like, well, we didn't fix it, so we can't come back out. And there she's like out of her mind. And then we have to call the owner of the company, but he's out of the country. So needless to say, after she called back again and said, my next call is to the local news station to saying, 80-year-old grandma doesn't have heat in her house. Yeah. So a cold snap, whatever. But still, it's like, again, that's the experience. That's right. All you needed to do was, hey, we'll take care of you. And by the way, she never asked for it for free, right? And then most times they don't. They know it's something. Maybe it's something that's not covered, right? But it's all about that expectation and understanding of how you can make the experience pain-free and fun. That's why Vance is a Disney guy. He worked there for years. Who leaves Disney unhappy? Nobody. Who leaves broke? Everyone. They sell beach balls for $50 that have strings on them.
Right.
Right. They sell umbrellas for $35 that you can buy for $3. Right. Yeah. They sell $7 ponchos with Mickey Mouse on them that cost.
I was getting ready to say, you got to mention the ponchos, because every time we go down there at least once or twice a year. We don't really do the Disney things. I got boys that didn't get into Disney, but we do SeaWorld and all the parks. And it's like every time it rains, I've got some poncho one that costs me $7-8. I'm like, this thing is like 42 cents.
And oh, by the way, you could have stuck them in your purse or your bag with you, because everyone knows it. Hey, newsflash, it rains in summer in Florida.
Right. Every day
at 3 o'clock. It's amazing. It's like what time is the 5 o'clock? It's like, what time is the 5 o'clock parade at Disney? What time is the 3 o'clock Disney? What time is the 3 o'clock Mickey parade is what people want to know. What they really want to know is, what time does it get here? Right? Yeah. That's the difference between the regular way and the Disney way. Oh, you're in front of the ice cream shop. Well, it'll get here around 3:17.
Yeah.
It's because the kids are screaming and crying because mom and dad are there going, oh my God, it's hot. It's hot. It's hot. I thought it's 3 o'clock. I thought it would be here. Well, it starts a mile away.
No.
Again, it's all that perception, right? So, but that's amazing. So let's talk. I know we talked a little bit beforehand about tech, right? So let's talk about tech consistency and manifesting. Can we tie that together? Because that's like an odd. Okay. So you want to manifest this. I'm assuming the perfect technology system is everything happens automatically with no inputs, right? Just magically, AI just plugs it in and turns it on, and poof, I can go from 1.2 to 3.2 by just implementing tech. Is that the biggest crock you've heard, or is that just like what you hear every day?
I mean, AI is the new loaded weapon that everybody wants to, throw around like it's, the greatest thing since sweet tea. And let me tell you, like, I think, AI is, I'm a big proponent and I love it. And we use it every day in our business to help us. But at the end of the day, I think AI is no different than any other software that's out there. If it's not set up the right way, it's not used consistently, at the end of the day, it's going to take a human you got to put the prompts in no matter what. And if you put the wrong prompts in, what it's going to put out is going to be garbage. So then you're just going to be less efficient and what you could have done if you'd have just done it as a human yourself. So but I think it's educating. Like, we're having to educate our clients a lot, because there's a lot of noise out there right now with AI, and they, see this shiny object, over here. Oh, I want to go get that because this will help me, do X, Y, and Z. And it's like, well, do you have the process in place? Do you have the people that will actually use that consistently and do what that software is supposed to do? And the answer really is no, because they can't get their technicians out there talking about their club membership and selling them. So like, how are you going to get someone to go use this AI, device every single day? So I think it's a double-edged
And I
sword right
think,
now.
and I would imagine you and I talk to similar people. I call them the mid-market, right? These sub 10, $20 million companies, privately held family businesses, 5 to 100, 200 employees, right? They don't
Yep.
have enough discipline. They don't have SOPs. They don't have standard operating procedures that talk about that. So if there was an SOP that talked about how to sell a membership, then maybe they could use AI, right?
Yeah.
If they had a troubleshooting, a training guide that says, here's your training, right? You and I know that I laugh. The training is, do you show up and are you not hungover? That's the training. If you show up and you're not hungover, then you're better than most, I guess. That's another challenge for another day. Where we live, I have friends in the construction industry. They're like, as long as they're not in jail, I'm happy. If they're here and they're not in jail, I don't have to bail them out. I'm good. So it's not as bad
Look,
anymore, but it was that way for a while, right?
I hear that, Bryan, it's different companies. I hear different things from, like, yeah, I mean, if they don't have any felony warrants, like I'm thankful. If they come in and they're not wearing flip-flops in an interview, like I'll take them. But then I hear other people that go, like, if they're not the most perfect person, dressed the right way, saying the right things, that have the right background, I think it's the culture at which your business is built on.
Yeah,
And when
absolutely.
you're running your business off of core values that actually mean something to you, to the business, and to that customer, and you are hiring and firing from those core values, you're delivering your service or product from those core values, that's when the people that are going to organically come to you, because word's going to get around that you work for the most amazing company ever that takes care of you, and that you're going to notice that the people that come in your door are the people that you already want to hire. But when you want to continue to run your business from the hip and think that you have processes in place, like, look, I didn't believe in the whole mission statement and core values and all that stuff for many, many years. And I had many, many problems and I didn't realize it. And I was just hiring off of talent and I thought that that was enough. And I used to be in corporate America. And so the problem was I had to go through these like 2-day human resource meetings, and it was like so boring to hear their mission statement, which meant nothing, you felt like. And I think really when you work for somewhere that's got 1,500, 2,500 employees, I don't think that mission statement is kind of watered down and doesn't mean as much. But for your small business, when you are hiring your team based off of those core values and what your team can get behind them and believe in them and show that and articulate that to your customers, that's where that whole buyer and customer journey experience really starts to make a turn.
And kind of an interesting turn. These conversations are fascinating. So you think about like the Ritz-Carlton, and I have a friend of mine in e-commerce, right? Everyone should have the ability to fix a problem, whether it costs real money, dollars, or just time and effort, right? So think of the Ritz-Carlton. Every employee at the Ritz-Carlton has a certain amount of money to spend. And I think I told you before the call, I love to mentor young high school students. I speak to about 300 or 400 kids in my local community. In a year-long entrepreneur program in our school program, it's fantastic. And so one of the girls I mentored about 4 years ago, she worked part-time at the Ritz-Carlton running the daycare center, whatever. And she came in and she's like, I had a Ritz experience. I'm like, and I have friends that, they answer the people that talk about this ability to solve problems. And she's like, I said, what was it? And she goes, I spent $1,200. She's like, what do you mean? She's like, they always tell you every employee has a certain amount of money to spend. No questions asked. She worked in the thing. They had a power spike, the Xbox and the whatever broke. They had a family party coming in. So she just told her boss, I'm going to Best Buy to buy some stuff. And the guy goes, for what? She goes, for the room where our Xboxes are broken. And then her boss goes, okay. She leaves site, comes back, puts $1,200 on her credit card. Naples, kids have $1,200 on their credit card, comes by, submits it. The general manager comes in and claps for her and said, you did the right thing. We don't just talk about the Ritz-Carlton experience. You actually lived it. And this is a 17-year-old kid, right? She went out and said, she's like, I was trained to do it. And she's like, I want to do it. So they're like, so maybe you teach your employees, hey, listen, if there's a $50 problem, fix it. Now, granted, there's some, Ritz-Carlton Naples, it's $1,000 a night. I'm sure that the fact she spent $1,200 didn't affect the bottom line too much, right? So there's real business guidelines, but every business owner can empower their team to do something that, even if it costs money, not just time, but even it costs money, right? My staff, one of my guys needed a computer. It's computer broke. And I was like, well, we need to fix it. He's, well, this, and I'm like, go get it. I just sent him money. Go get it. You
But I
can't do your
think
job. And he was like, what? I'm like, no, go get it.
I
Send me a
think
picture.
that's super interesting that you mentioned the Ritz-Carlton. And I think so many small business owners that may be listening to this could really learn something from that, because you wonder, you mentioned earlier about if somebody needs an air conditioning system where you're at when it gets hot, like it could range from 5,000 to 15,000 for the same system. Well, because you're selling from value and not price. And so you've got these larger companies that have a ton of overhead and to pay their guys the best there are. Like they can't charge $5,000 for that system. Like they have expenses. And I think I got in an argument with someone the other day. They were like, you can't pass your overhead expenses to the customer. It's like, well, that's called business. Like that's how the business, like where do you think those overhead expenses are passed on to? Like it has to go there. But when you think about that, the reason why these companies, the reason it's you've built a brand to know that you're either the best at what you provide or sell. Like you've got, because I don't think Starbucks has the best coffee in the whole world. But what they have built is an amazing brand that people want to go wait in line, every morning to get their coffee. And there was a time before Starbucks that everybody drank gas station coffee and it was all like 50 cents a cup. And then they're able to charge $4 or $5. So I think everyone can kind of learn that when you take that concept that no matter whatever it's going to cost, fix the problem. And like today, I think as far as, word of mouth and a bad review used to be, you're at the ball field and you complain about it to a few people, but like people like with the stroke of a keyboard can reach hundreds of people. They can get in all these Facebook groups in your community and completely destroy you if they want to. So like, why not just do right by the customer and do whatever it's going to cost you to fix the problem?
And on your overhead question, right? So there's depending on, again, where you live, there's a certain level of certainty, to use a Tony Robbins word, that if they're going to call a big company, they know they're going to pay a premium because they're paying for certainty that at 2:00 in the morning, the weekend of their daughter's wedding, the air conditioning goes out and they got 50 guests coming, that they're going to have the resources to be able to get that system service so that it works.
Yeah.
Right. So when you go to Joe, who's in the Facebook group, who's in his pickup truck, him and his partner, working for wages, which is a great place to start. Bootstrapping is a fantastic. I mean, Jesus, we all did it, right? So we all start with one customer, and then we get two, and then we get three. It's every business is the same. They're all that way. But they're paying for that certainty, and don't be afraid to charge for it, but be fair, right? I mean, saying that they're going to do what they need to do and, and earn a profit. Businesses earn profit. That's the way it is. And it's kind of I get the whole overhead thing because, that's an operation sales question because the sales guys don't want to get charged for overhead and the ops guys want to charge everything to sales, right? So that's a different conversation for another day. But nonetheless, so back to empower your people to solve a problem and just make it right. Cause that's going to help. And then, it's ever since COVID, people feel weird and like there's this mad dash and we all want to blame other people and it's all about supply chain and, hey, how about you just solve the problem? Because all the inputs going up front and your clients probably don't, right? So, hey, this unit was, $7,000 a year ago and now it's $9,000. I wish it was different. That's just the way it is, right?
Yeah.
So, and I wish I could help you, but I'll do everything I can to get you to where you need to be. And if I can't do it, then you choose someone else. That's fine too. But you gotta have marketing systems to be able to do that and sales systems and follow up and other stuff.
I think you got to know your numbers. You got to know your numbers. And I think if you truly want to take your business to the next level, you've got to be able to create an experience. And that experience is where all the value lies in whatever you're trying to sell, whether it's a product or a service. There was a book I read in college and it talked about like Starbucks and Apple and this experience they built around the brand. And it was like, you think about it, like a new iPhone or a new Apple product comes out, like people camp out for days to be able to get that. And it's like why? And that feeling, I mean, obviously people may not get it as much anymore because they change out phones every couple months. But like, you used to get that new Apple phone. It was like taking it out of that box and like the way that it was packaged, and it was an experience. And so I think if you could try to think through those things of your own company, how do you create an experience that makes the customer feel like you care about them, and whatever price it is you charge, the value is there because it's built into the way your guys look when they get to the home, the way they're presented in their uniform, the way they put boot covers, on their shoes, the way that they talk to the customer and actually explain things to them. Or you just go in there like, what's the problem? I fix it, I'm done. Then whatever you charge, you're going to feel like, well, you did that in 20 minutes. Like, is it really worth X amount? And it's like, well, you're paying for my knowledge. And it's like, yeah, but if you don't give them an experience, then they're never going to feel like they got a value out of that.
Right. And I think, and again, I can't emphasize enough, listen to the Vance Morris episode whenever it happens, because he will tell you this. He's got some amazing stories about stuff, consumer products that you and I identify with, right? The difference between making a cake and having a cake made, right? You and I can make a cake with flour, baking soda, baking powder, sugar, some butter, whatever, for $1 or $2. You buy a cake mix, it's $7. You go get a cake made at the local Publix or Kroger's or whatever your grocery store, it might be $20. You go to the local bakery, it might be $100. You go to a celebrity chef, it's $2,000. You go do it at a wedding, it's $10,000. It's a cake. Let's be real. Which experience where do you want to be in it? So like that idea of attraction, right? So I'm a magnetic marketing guy. So when you use attraction and nurturing, you don't have to sell because the systems do those for you. But that concept is kind of overused today, but I was lucky enough to be mentored by the guy, and it's definitely true. And part of that process is that, you just want them to buy when they're ready to buy. And so a lot of times there's a lot of pressure situations. Now I know in heating and cooling systems and hot out, it's a different story.
Right.
That's a play strategy that we like, right? As business owners, you're in that business. That's a play strategy you like cold winters and hot summers are what people in your business, your clientele typically wants. What are they doing in the spring and the fall when it's not happening? And that's where marketing systems come in, and consistency and trying new things and experimenting and providing value, right? Because guess what your staff wants? They want consistent paychecks. They want to be a part of a team. They want to be a part of something. They don't want to go look for another gig. They don't want to be carpenters in the fall and, plowing snow and other stuff, right? So there's all kinds of opportunities about being consistent. So
I agree.
Awesome. So I tell you what, I think that's a good place to stop. I think, so tell us so what's the name of your podcast? We'll include that in the show notes so they know where to look for it.
Home Service Hustle, and it can be found on wherever you listen to podcasts, it's there.
And we'll have a link in the show notes and description. So wherever you're listening to this, you can go ahead and listen to that. And then is there anywhere else if they want to find more information about Jonathan and his amazing team of guys who help them do stuff? Is there somewhere they can go look?
Yeah, so the marketing company is called Cornerstone Marketing Solutions. And, take a look. This is our 9th year, but, we're just trying to stay on top of all the marketing trends and be able to drive in leads. And then, Bryan's got the second part of the business where it's taking those leads and actually doing what you're supposed to do, which you would think, as a business owner, you would follow up until the person tells you to leave me the hell alone. But I don't know what it's about. People just think, well, the lead called or it came in. Like, if they didn't answer, it wasn't a good lead. It's like life happens. The doorbell rings, the baby starts crying, the dog barks. And guess what? We live in a world, and if people don't realize it, like you can find a date by swiping different directions, and you get on TikTok and people are just watching these 3-second videos and swiping. So like if you think that people are just going to call your business or fill out a form or text you and then it's a done deal, like they may need your services, but they also may need to be contacted a few times. And if you don't, they will find someone else.
Yes, and then what they're thirsting for is information. And is Joe going to show up when he says he's going to show up? How did Joe do? Right? There's a method to that. And so you guys, I'm not doing video ones. These are on YouTube. These are all podcasts. So I had a full head of hair before I learned about this business. And Jonathan's laughing at me. Just answer the damn phone. Just answer the phone. Like your business will. So you could double your business just by answering inquiries. And now, if you can't hire someone to do it, that's fine. But answer the damn phone, answer the damn emails, because you'll wonder why the guy that we talked earlier about, the guy that you're aspiring to, right?
Yeah.
There's a reason why there's guys getting 90% of inbound inquiries are turning into paying jobs, because they answer every inbound inquiry by religiously. Then they go back and contact the old people that they used to do business with and said, how are you doing? Can I help you? That is it. And if, by the way, and that supports all the other treatments that you're doing in your marketing, because as much as technology and ads, other stuff, humans crave contact with humans because I don't know, we're human.
Yeah.
Pretend you care, right? Act like you care. And then the more you can do to help support that, the better off you'll be. So thank you guys for listening to this amazing episode. I hope you guys got a ton out of it. Be consistent. We're going to put a link to the book. Who's the author for the book that was in there?
Weldon Long.
Weldon Long, The Power of Consistency.
Consistency.
That's awesome. I love books. I read like nuts. So if you guys are out driving around, if you can't, just get an Audible account. The best money you're ever going to spend, besides listening to the podcasts like this one are awesome. Listen to books. Listen to what other amazing people have to tell their stories, because it's going to change your life. And if you can only do it 15 minutes at a time, again, consistency. Give yourself a chance to do that. So thanks to everybody for being here.
Thank you, Bryan.